Director for Summit County. Then we'll have a break after his presentation, then we'll do some work on our final projects, wrap up, and then talk about next class. Any questions before we get going? Okay. All right, here are the review questions. You will likely need to reference your notes. And if you really can't figure one of these out, you can ask Peter in the back of the room. Just a strategy, okay? I do, they're in the back. All right, you can turn and talk to the person next to you or move if you need to. Susan.
It's ridiculous.
Hey, how's it going? I'm Carl. Esteban, nice to meet you. What did you learn last week?
So I remember we talked about final projects. So I think one of the people that was doing the planning was talking about community engagement and education.
Okay.
So a little bit about that, maybe some of the things that should be.
I know I'm coordinated, somehow,
I guess it was the history, right?
Urban design?
Urban design.
I think so.
Yeah.
And I apologize, I wasn't here. So I maybe know some of these answers, but probably not all of
Okay,
them.
alright, so let's go into it. For me test, yeah, I don't know.
Should we Google that one?
Feels on point. First question.
So basically, Peter went through, talked about first cities that exist.
Oh, okay.
Absolutely.
Civilization.
Perfect, okay.
That's kind of
So like early cities and why they were a thing, why people decided to unify in cities rather than just stay in farmland.
right.
Okay, very cool.
You know,
All right.
from wherever that was. It was in Samaria, I believe, is where the first city was in Iraq.
Wait a minute.
Greece. And then we talked about different and how they like you know, the guy is very well known in Chicago.
Frank Lloyd Wright?
Yeah. Impacted the modern day suburban
Yeah.
sprawl, if you will.
Right.
Anyways, so that was what we went through last week.
Yes, and sometimes we don't see the ramifications of the new style, but yeah, it's great that people have space and have backyard, and then it turns into suburbia, which has pros and cons to it, but you know, a lot of unintended consequences. How you doing? I'm Carl.
Carl?
Yeah.
I'm Jeff.
Jeff, nice to meet you.
Yeah, it's real good, right?
We're trying to decide what we learned last week. Rural to urban transit. Oh, okay. I wasn't here either, so you're good. If there's a quiz, yeah, it's on.
So, the last part of class.
I'm seeing it work.
So, we got info from the various
I got my hours out.
So that was when we did the last first part of class, we talked about first
Yeah,
slides were there. So, Fermi test, strength, utility, beauty.
Yeah, but wait a second. When we just talked about last week,
That's a good question. The, what's that ratio? What I got for saying?
how we were going around the city,
Yeah, well,
and
that's part of the beauty
says
aspect.
how you promote design and how
how they go
we can change people's behavior.
in architecture, basically, you know.
So that
You're,
extends to me, right? So
Yeah, you should know the last
I think it was a test. He was
What
telling me.
have the urban center, and then.
I don't remember what a cluster was. Do we?
Let's say this whole room, this club, yeah, we're in.
So, say you have farmland, right, say there's 100 acres of farmland, and you wanna put in 50 homes, you could just do 2-acre homes, 50 homes, 2 acres each, you get to that 100 acres. You could also cluster them, do like quarter-acre lots, and then it saves a lot of space for farming, agriculture, other, or even redevelopment. So,
Which is actually another because
One bedroom community and another like here, when they.
Cedar Crest? Cedar Hill?
yeah,
Cedar something? Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, 1,000 acres at the end.
Cluster is that.
Oh, yeah.
Or walkable.
And that's the downside, is it's very difficult to do unless you have like demands and under control over one developer or master
So they
plan.
have a couple more of
And
those.
promotes walkability, but it also preserves.
How they navigate.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it, in theory, once you get into the practice, does the land actually enable you to do that? And is the political ownership on the same? Yeah, sure. Yeah, a lot of challenges there, but in theory, you know, you save a lot of that land to build utilities for the whole 100 acres. Yeah. Transit-oriented development.
City, is like a transit stop.
Oh, so, you know, like when you have like just a gutter.
Higher density housing, that way you can be serving public transportation or walkability, and that way it really reduces the amount of trips you're making. Sorry, I'm thinking from a transportation standpoint,
Yeah,
but.
no, for sure.
Yeah.
Because it's a symbiotic
I
partnership.
think that was, there's a distinction again between
Not how.
TOD and TUD, right? Transit-oriented development versus transit-adjacent development.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so now.
This is the.
Oh, right.
I'm still.
So it would be necessarily state legislature. I think that was part of it, right?
The resident trying to put things down. I think they have two.
Place for that to occur successfully, but it didn't. So like,
Required cars.
Yes, but they didn't implement.
An interesting thing to say,
What do you
I
think?
thought when I was reading the article,
Ninth Street
the
is
last
being
time
developed,
anybody
is
lived
being
in like this is
21st
like.
Street.
Okay, like that totally like.
Party, man. He actually did talk about it a little bit with the union flag stuff.
the transit from the city.
So
They just had it.
100%
Like, you know,
leads to sold. So that's kind of an interesting part.
even like South,
But who knows if we can.
South Jordan, that was all.
Yeah.
He actually
Now
had it,
it's.
But I mean, no, I mean, I know it's
Thousand targets, right?
yeah, exactly.
We have the taxes.
Yeah, as long as you find out, you know,
All the existing
Is the west side. So now,
What
let
is
me
the
ask you
difference
something,
between
where
South
that
Jordan
day,
and
where
West?
they're talking about
That's
where they're
further
putting
west from.
I don't know.
the new stadium. That's closer
I
to
think
them.
you know, kind of macro versus like specific project or specific.
That's what it sounds like to me.
Yeah, so housing affordability.
Oh, and that's another one. For the.
Yeah, well, yeah, it's like. But, you know, you can
Yeah, thank you. Like, how everybody knows.
South and west.
Oh, I thought that was one. Maybe I didn't go to that. I don't know. was a big home.
Yeah, that's the big, that's the big.
Oh, that's a
Okay,
program.
that's where they're gonna be able to stay. Yeah, so the pollution will blow right in your face. At least the land is cheap.
So much anymore.
Yes.
Now,
It's like an adjusted based on, like, instead of, what's the one that they use? Right? As ADU is, adjusted. So it's what they have in Park City versus what they use income wise for their affordable housing. Probably be easier to just do.
Yeah, no, I think it's in like,
yeah,
for density
I see what you mean,
purposes,
yeah.
like they're saying that they're giving people.
ADUs in people's lots.
Yeah,
That's what
right.
yeah, yeah.
Because if you live in a single
It could be.
one
Used as
is
an
one
effective
multi-story.
No, I think I had my action.
I know what you're talking about,
So that doesn't, you know, because that would give you the
because they're
density.
not density laws.
But it doesn't match the neighborhood.
So,
Little like
they
county.
take a little income.
Yeah.
Like their ADU is not gonna be as much as a rent wise as like as a house.
Yeah.
What was that?
Yeah, I think it's something with the
And
starting
the
to
renovated to
consolidate.
land,
Not my bad.
it's real hard, you
Yes.
know, man, like.
Yes, well, I think that's,
Sounds great.
no, I think you could,
It was difficult from a,
you're reaching
Like you had to
in
approve
your
process,
business
for approval
the
process.
same location because that's all commercial.
Yeah, I feel like it almost has to be attached to the house, because then
An affordable
it doesn't have a ton of infrastructure.
and the neighbors go, well, that's two houses there. Yeah, why are you, and then maybe twice as many cars.
still are one zoning.
But maybe not, yeah. It's hard. But I think there's definitely a market for it, because I think a lot of people who can't afford maybe their house in the future, but they sure want a house. They all have children, people are delaying
Right.
having children, so that, you know,
Okay,
accessory
but-
dwelling unit,
but then
one
that's
bedroom, two
still-
bedroom, all they really need. So it really could be a really advantageous way to develop. But then you have to think like, well, the neighbors, they didn't sign up for two houses, they signed up for one next door, so.
Yeah, it's funny how, like, is that like a commercial, real estate thing? Most of those developers are just like, oh yeah, all these guys need is like 500 square feet, 400 square feet, so they're, like, a lot of the designs primarily are just like 400 or 500 square feet.
Yeah,
It's kind of smart.
Yeah, yeah.
We're gonna live in that small space.
but, and here, you can find an accessory dwelling unit that's like 3,000 square feet, you know, because people have money and they're like, yeah, I could throw out another thing, well, it's now bigger than like most people's houses.
In Salt Lake, I think they're capped at like 750.
Oh, okay.
There was either a ratio of the square footage of the house or.
Oh, really?
7.
Yeah, that seems to make a lot of sense, so you're not going crazy.
All right, everybody. As we're starting to come back together, I'm just going to suggest that if you are having difficulty reading the screen, feel free to move up to this very front table, because I know it's not quite as large as some of our others. So if seeing it is an issue, feel free to move up. Okay, what is a clustered development? Who thinks they can explain that using just facial expressions? Just kidding. What is a clustered development? What do you think? I heard so many different ideas about it.
It's where, say you have a parcel of property, instead of just spreading all the development out, kind of even level density, you strategically kind of position different areas of development within that parcel, leaving room for open space and connectivity.
Yeah, great explanation. Can you give me a thumbs up if you think that that might work in Summit County? Thumbs down, you're like, that's a terrible idea. Thumbs sideways, you think maybe. Okay.
Is that what they're trying to do in that thing right there?
Yes, do you remember what that thing right there is called?
No, something crest?
Cedar Crest, yeah. There's an upcoming public hearing that Street Kids members,
November second is the hearing, I think another working session.
they do, yeah.
Deer Crest is exactly where is it?
Cedar Crest,
Cedar Crest.
it's right around Pointsville.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is there a plan that people can see? Cause I haven't seen it.
It's online.
It's online.
Yeah, very detailed.
Very deep.
Yeah, and they also have a place where you can sign up for updates from the project, managers, and I've gotten a few emails from them, like reminding when those, information sessions are, when the public hearings are. I think they also included it in their most recent one, saying that during the public hearing, you can make a comment. Now, what kind of comment would one be making at this type of public hearing? You can, absolutely. Mhm.
So that you can kind of get a feel for where the developers, at least the meeting I went to, I had a feeling that the developers had a outline, but was open to input.
Yes. Mhm. You can certainly ask questions, they may or may not be answered in that same session. Sometimes they might say, we'll get back to you, or that's a great question.
And I thought they were really positive in how they approached whoever had something to say.
That's good.
Yeah.
Good feedback. So during this type of project, yes, you could ask questions, you might even ask them about some of the urban design components that you learned about last week and how they might be implementing those or not. During this part of the public input, you could make comments that are more based on emotion, but it would probably be more effective if you made comments based on what? Based on facts. Yeah. Okay. As we get into transportation for this evening, what is a transit-oriented development? We had some pretty dense readings this week, so if you flipped through them, what do you think a transit-oriented development is?
Dakota Pacific. Canyons.
Explain.
It's right near a hub, and even canyon, slope side, you can get onto buses and you don't need a car.
Great. Any other questions about these? All right, who's got the Latin? Peter, what is it?
Firmness, utility, and beauty. Often translated as commodity, firmness, and delight. Vitruvius, it came from Vitruvius' 10 books of architecture. Hey, it should be capable of standing up, should do what it says on the tin. A library is a library, it's not a house, so don't design the two things the same way. And there's no reason at all why you shouldn't make it look good either, despite what some artistic movements suggest.
Thank you. The rural to urban transect, I read some pretty good descriptions of this. So today, we're going to be looking at defining transportation planning, explaining this connection that we've heard about between transportation and land use, articulating the importance of different modes of transportation. So a mode is another word for a type. So walking versus driving, biking versus scootering. Describe the relationship between Summit County and various transportation stakeholders, and then know how to participate in shaping the future of transportation planning in Summit County. And for that, we have our guest speaker, Carl Miller. Yay!
Well, great, thank you for coming out and learning about transportation planning with me. This is exciting. I think transportation planning is a fun topic, and we can go a lot of different directions with this. I think this is a topic that's changing all the time with technology and how people live their lives and everything like that. So I also think transportation planning is about 1,000 times more fun than urban design. So whoever comes in and tells you urban design is fun, wrong. Transportation planning is where it's at. So let's see, my name is Carl Miller. I'm the Director of Transportation Planning, and I want to play maybe a quick game. I'm not sure this is going to work, so if it doesn't, please don't throw stuff at me. But if you have a cell phone, I think it has to be a cell phone, go to menti.com, and we're gonna try to play this game. Basically, this originated when I was a little kid, and every once in a while, and you can take a scan shot of the QR code or menti.com. When I was a kid, every once in a while, we got to go on vacation, and I remember this one vacation, I grew up in California, we flew to Mexico, and I got the window seat, and I thought it was super fun to look out the window, and all that kind of stuff, and as we were flying into the city, I like to look down at the lights and think, I wonder why that school is there, the park is there, why is this neighborhood there, and why is downtown where it is? And that fascinated me, and I thought, I wonder if the city could have been done a different way, with the university and downtown switched, or, why is it the way that it is? And so I've always been fascinated with how cities get their form and how transportation plays a role. Is it working for anybody? Oh, okay, good, yeah, good. Is it not working for anybody? Maybe if you need to help. I should say that while we're playing this game, there's no prizes. So if it doesn't work for you, I apologize. It's probably not the end of the world. I don't know, Maddie, do we have any prizes? You get a free comprehensive plan from that planning and zoning department.
Pre-approval for any CUP.
Yeah, free conditions of,
So, Carl, last week during the urban design presentation, I offered a $20 prize for the correct answer.
Okay, so Peter offered another $20 tonight, so thank you, that's very generous of you. Now you can double it. Okay, so if you have menti.com, we're basically gonna play this game, and I'm gonna show you streets from the aerial view, from a bird's eye view, and it's just gonna be the streetscape. Everything else is gonna be removed, and I'm gonna see how smart you guys are. And we're gonna see if you know which city these different aerial views are of. I will actually make it slightly easier. I will give you 4 options, and you have to just choose the one. And so if you don't even know, just guess, okay? So we're gonna see if this works or not. I may have built this all up, but then it doesn't work. Let's see.
Something changed.
Is that working?
Yeah.
We can do it. I just hit the thumb and I gave you this. You did? Okay.
Yes, perfect. Do the thumb, and then it will give you the map.
It should just change.
Will it just change for you? Maybe hit refresh.
It worked.
It worked for most people?
It worked.
Okay, raise your hand or let me know if it doesn't work for you. Peter will give you $10 if you can't participate.
I'll give double what I gave away last week.
It's not working? I'm so sorry. Maybe hit refresh.
I know.
Oh,
What did you say?
okay. Okay, you guys can partner up. All right, I'm starting to get some answers on this one.
Well, it's not down. What's that look like?
I'm afraid to hit the next button, it might go away. So I'm just gonna have you look at your own phones. And the answer is, see, I guess I hit stop. Hit enter to show the correct answer. Is everybody ready?
Yeah.
Last chance, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Oh, nobody got it right. 0 for 14. This is Beijing. The one on your phone. It's Beijing. A couple things that you can kind of start to and all the other answers were pretty tough. This was tough. But you can see that the streets are in a very perfectly rectangular, round circle. In Beijing, they really don't have to do city planning like we do it here. Property rights aren't important, and so if they say the subway's going in, well, the subway's going in. They don't have to work around a neighborhood or anything like that. The advantage now is that they've built hundreds of miles of subway system just in the last decade, which would take us, we would only be getting halfway through the environmental at that point. Of course, they don't have property rights there, so pros and cons. Okay, we'll go to the next slide. Okay, is everybody seeing the next one?
Yeah.
Okay, excellent. there's
You
14
mean
people.
Venice, California, or Venice, Italy?
Venice, Italy.
Okay, makes a difference.
It does. Yeah.
I swear, you try to open multiple different screens,
What?
so you can guess
Oh.
different answers.
No, no, I see.
Should I give everybody 5 more seconds? Take your best guess. See what you think. Okay, looks like we have, should I shut it down?
Wait.
Oh, last minute choices. Okay. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Enter. Hey, good job, group. It's Venice, Italy. And why is it? Why is it Venice? Tell me some of the things that gave it away.
Well, it looked like there was a big river going through there, so
Yeah.
I figured that was a canal.
That's perfect.
And I
Exactly.
decided that was the ocean with Catalina Island, but, you know.
Very good, very good. Yeah, you know your Venice, Italy.
No, I Venice, California.
Oh, you know your Venice, California. Okay. Yeah, and so you can see that it's a very different urban form, right? Because of there's really not a way to connect through the canal, or at least it's really expensive when you do that. And so you have these little pockets of neighborhoods, and obviously the big canal going through that. Okay, I'm going way too slow. I'm going to speed this up a little bit. Which city is this?
Wait, I'm not on that one.
It didn't refresh?
I got it.
Got it?
It says Paris.
Okay, should I shut this one down and see what people thought? Maybe give you 5 more
5, 4, 3,
seconds.
2, 1.
5, 4, 3, 2,
I'm
1.
a senior using a phone.
Okay, very good. It was Paris. Almost everybody got that one right. Anybody want to, yes? Tell me how they knew it was Paris. Yeah.
2 islands.
The 2 islands. Oh, okay. Excellent. So the geography of it. The river. You saw the river? Okay, so you can tell by the neighborhoods. If you look at it carefully, you can even see that a lot of the neighborhoods are old because the streets are kind of close together and they're not built for wide highways like we would build a city today, unfortunately. Okay, a couple more of these. Okay. Oh, the second one should be Cairo, not Cairo. So that wasn't a trick, by the way. That's just me, that's
Carry Australia.
Okay, should I give it 5, 4, 3, 2, 1? Last choices. Oh, okay. Changes there. Yeah, most people got it right, Tokyo. And as you can see, in the downtown, the lines are so close together. It's an island. It's a mountainous island. There's not a whole lot of land, so the land values are really expensive, and they have to, put a lot into their downtown. So, any other things that give it away about Tokyo? Okay, got a couple more, and then we'll get out Peter's $20. I'm going to give you a hint on this one. It is Canadian. All right, 5 more seconds. 4, 3. Okay, good job. Winnipeg got a late push there. It's Winnipeg. I've never been there, but can anybody tell me anything about Winnipeg? Any experts? Any Canadians here? You don't have to out yourself. It's fine.
I just did it from the process of elimination. It wasn't Toronto because it wasn't on water. It wasn't Vancouver, no water.
Okay.
And I figured it had to be bigger than Calgary.
Okay, very good logic there. And you can see the river cut through the middle of it, and you can really see, can you see the kind of the farmland surrounding it, right? With, you know, on the outsides and the skirt. So, anyway, I think we got one more. I think this is the last one, kind of a unique one.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, there's nothing right on this. You just choose whatever you feel like. Okay, I'll give it another 5 seconds. 4. And it is Brasilia, master plan community. So you can see that everything is very orderly, right? All this, the streets are, you know, very, you know, you can almost see that they came up with it in their heads and then just dropped it on the paper, not like the other cities where they kind of worked out organically and kind of build up over time. This was kind of all developed at the same time as the capital city of Brazil. Okay, so, oh, sorry, one more. No, you're not done yet. I apologize.
I just went out.
Well, my bad.
You missed the fun.
I promise this is it.
I think it's Dubai.
You think?
Yeah, it's coast to
Little palm trees and.
All right, pick something, I'll shut her down in 5 seconds.
Yeah, I wasn't sure if you like spun it around. Just
2, 1, done. Good job, class, it's Dubai. How'd you know it's Dubai? All 3 islands, right? Natural, completely natural. No, they have lots of oil money. They say if we want to build a whole new thing, we'll just build a whole new thing here. One fun thing, has anybody ever been to Dubai? Okay, you have?
Yeah,
Oh, okay, tell us what about it.
lived there for 9 months.
All right,
There's a military base about 20 minutes outside of town, middle of the desert,
yeah,
Al Minhad, and so it's a wonderful little desert. And then you drive 20 minutes into town, and it's metropolis and incredible and amazing. And you have all these little souks and malls. Everything is planned. One of the things I really liked about it is because shopping and being indoors is so prominent there, their access to shopping centers is very sensible, where you can drive directly from the freeways into the shopping centers, parking lots. And so the exits actually go right, instead of having to stop at all these lights and everything, it goes right into the shopping centers. So I thought that was really cool
yeah.
about Dubai, and yeah, just a lot of fun.
Kind of next level city, highly master planned,
Did
kind
you
of
enjoy
next
it?
generation. Very
Probably too
auto-centric, not a whole lot of walking, but again, it's 110 degrees there.
Too much.
So people get a lot of walk, I don't know. Something you probably don't know about Dubai, did you know that people in Dubai don't like the Flintstones? The TV show? Yeah, they don't like the Flintstones. The people in Abu Dhabi do. Okay, so anyway, as you can see, a lot of things go into. Brittany, you didn't record that, did you?
I did,
Did you edit
unfortunately.
that?
I don't
know. As far as the record. But as far as
That's
the.
a blast.
Might clip it and put it on our social.
I didn't realize that. Okay, so as you can see, a lot of things go into how a city forms over time, and you know, the geography obviously is important. Venice, we find, you know, there's only so much you can do on these little pockets and canals. Demographics and income, right? If you have oil money, you can just build a whole new island out there if you want to. Politics and culture depends on you know, what you want your city to be like, and we'll talk a little bit about visioning, the history of it, how it develops over time, or if it's developed, you know, all of a sudden like Brasilia, you know, they did it all at one time, and there's some advantages to that, and there's some disadvantages to that. And then economics, obviously the amount of money you have and how you fund your transportation system in your city obviously play a major role into how it looks and how it develops. So transportation planning has existed basically forever. As long as people have wanted to get from one place to another, there's been transportation. And roads came later, but people definitely walked between places. A lot of roads, you know, a lot of the advancements and the technological advancements we got in transportation really came because people said, I'd like to start a war with my neighboring country, and I need a good way to get my, you know, my war carts there, my weapons there. And so a lot of what we see started with that, you know, Roman Empire and building, how do I get my army from one side of my empire to another? And it still continues relatively today. You know, why was the national highway system built? It was built in the 50s so that way we could make sure we got our troops from one side of the country, depending on if there was you know, another war. So so a lot of it is built based on that, and a lot of it stays based, you know, forever. This is me and my family in Pompeii, Italy. Everything was destroyed by the volcano there, except for the streets are pretty good condition, really. Sometimes better conditions than we have now because of the way that they built them. So really, while buildings will come and go, urban design is a passing fad. Streets and roads and those pathways, those are the things that will last for generations and for all time. Right, Peter?
If you want to believe that.
So a couple maybe concepts to talk about first, and we'll talk about kind of how a plan is made. Really, over time, there became a road hierarchy. You know, you don't want to maybe, you know, local street is the street that you live on that you have access to, and then that moves up to a greater hierarchy where, you know, collector streets brings in a whole network of neighborhood local streets, your residential streets, those spill into arterials and then onto highways. And that's kind of the system that the most urbanized areas have followed to really move people efficiently. And it also enables people to, you know, want to live in a place where maybe they don't have that highway traffic, but also have access to that. That's kind of the road hierarchy that we typically think of. Those local roads will typically have really good access. Almost every, you know, house can get out to that road. But then that access reduces over time. You know, you don't want 100 access points to the interstate, or else cars aren't moving. You know, you're always dealing with additional traffic pulling onto a free-flowing mobility corridor. So that's kind of one of the things that we talk about is access and how that plays a role in shaping a transportation network and plays a role in that transportation land use connection. So, and go ahead and stop me if you have any questions at any time. I'll just keep rambling. Really, there's a lot of different frameworks for how a plan is made. I kind of wanted to use Utah's transportation vision because it's local and it kind of sets out some kind of key steps with first identifying the stakeholders, who's involved, who gets a seat at the table, who gets to decide things, who gets to you know, move the process along. Phase one is kind of that context, that values and goals. What are we trying to do here? You know, are we trying to build a system where we move people efficiently? Are we trying to make a system where people are comfortable in walking down the street? Or are we trying to do all of the above? And really those values and those goals play a role into how we make transportation decisions and how we fund transportation decisions. Next, phase two is the problem. What is the problem with our transportation system? How are we going to fix that? Do we agree on that problem? Phase three, the solutions, and then I'll get into that. So basically I'll go through these one at a time. But basically, this is not a comprehensive list, but kind of an outline of some of the stakeholders that are typically at the table and the different roles that they have. You know, the cities have a role in how, you know, their city streets work, how they want people to be able to move around. Do they want people to get in a car and traverse a city, or do they want people to get out, you know, on a bike or walk or public transportation? UDOT, obviously, as far as, the statewide highway system. High Valley Transit plays a role with public transportation and Basin Recreation Trails, Mountain Land Association of Governments is who we were working with more closely, as far as that regional conversation. A lot of the transportation, you know, in a small area maybe doesn't affect people in other surrounding adjacent areas. As you grow, you know, you have highways, you have to have that conversation about, well, I wanted this highway to be 5 lanes and my neighbors on the next community over wanted it to be, you know, rural. What are we gonna do? How do we have that conversation? And then obviously the public, this is really all done so we can move public people around and you know, this is tax dollars that people pay into and we wanna make sure that those values are reflected in the transportation plans. I think I'm running kind of sluggishly, so I'll kind of go through this quickly, but also keep in mind that different agencies have different roles and responsibilities. Whereas maybe UDOT's thinking from a statewide perspective, how are we gonna get people from Logan to St. George? We need to move people quickly. The city's not really thinking about that. They're thinking about how do we build a livable community? How do we make sure that we're you know, providing a place where people want to live and raise a family. They're not as concerned about the efficiency over long stretches of land. And then the timeline is also different. Maybe whereas the state will look out decades into the future, maybe the city is saying, I want to make sure I build this road in the next 5 years. So all of these take time and take perspective, but you know, it doesn't always line up really nicely that we want to do exactly what UDOT is doing, and UDOT wants to do exactly what High Valley Transit is doing. So there's some give and take, and it requires us to kind of come together and work through these issues.
So,
yeah.
question on, so the RPO, what's RPO stand for?
Oh, sorry, good question. Recently, in fact, just earlier this year, Summit County and Wasatch County grouped together and developed a rural planning organization. And it's a regional planning organization that helps to make sure that we're working together as these 2 counties, along with all the cities, and also kind of gets us a seat at the table with UDOT. UDOT is obviously a big organization. They can't respond to every city individually, and so they set up a lot of metropolitan planning organizations, like in Salt Lake or Utah County. They're big enough. They're metropolitan organization, kind of speaks for the community and says, we'd like to spend money this way, or we'd like to develop this way. So that was something that we set up earlier this year, so we have a better seat at the table and communicate better and coordinate better with our partners. Bridget?
So when you say under UDOT, approved every 4 years in coordination with the MPOs, do we as an RPO are included in that, or no?
Yes and no.
Okay.
The MPOs do have a kind of a higher
Which
role.
makes sense. Okay.
They have you serve more people and,
Yeah.
you know, organized that way. But we do get a seat at the table
Okay.
as well. We don't have often the same access to like money for
Funding,
funds.
yeah. Okay.
But yeah, that was
Cool.
important to RPO. Yeah, good questions. Okay, maybe you're familiar with this. This is really kind of the visioning process, and Maddie's running a really good approach to bringing people together, hearing what their thoughts are. How do we want the county to look like in the future? Transportation is part of that, but it can really go a lot of different ways. If the community says we really should be focused more on pedestrian infrastructure or highways, obviously that'll impact the policies, the funding, the decisions that are made throughout the county. This one's a little bit old. We're now in phase 4, right?
Mm-hmm.
Has anybody participated in the Parks Summit visioning? Good.
You haven't, why?
About Summit County.
The survey, yeah. And usually we'll have something like this with people with pens and markers hunched over a map on the desk. Sometimes with chewing on markers, getting nervous about the decisions that are being made. But that's typically what a visioning process will look like. Okay, phase 2 of the problem. What is it that we're trying to solve? When I was a young transportation planner, I would go get my haircut and they would always make small talk and say, oh, what do you do for a living? I'd say, I'm a transportation planner. And then every time they would say, oh, I have a problem that the road that I want you to fix is this. And so I started lying and I tell people I teach high school history. because I just don't wanna, get into that while I'm getting my hair cut. But, I think there's a lot to that question of, you need to fix this road, and that could mean a lot of different things. And so that could mean, there's a lot of traffic on the street that I want to, and everybody is going to the same place I wanna go to at the same time of day that I want to go to, and so we need to fix traffic. We'll often look at things like, vehicle volume of traffic during different times of the day, and we'll look at, reliability. This is a picture, anybody want to take a guess? Okay, you know. That's Kimball Junction, and everybody's trying to go to the same place, and obviously, they're trying to go at the same time. And so, we can look at that and we can say, well, what are our solutions? We can widen the road, maybe, new interchange there, maybe if we can just, Portland's doing congestion pricing, where they charge people more at certain times of the day. Can we widen when people need to go, so that maybe people aren't going all the time at 8 AM and at 5 PM, but they're, going throughout the day. That way we don't have to widen the roads, put a lot of money there. But that's one thing that people say when they say, fix this road. Another thing they say is, this is a terrible place to ride my bike. It's not comfortable at all. And that can also mean a few different things. Maybe, you're riding with traffic and you don't feel safe. You're just right next to somebody whizzing down the road at 45 miles an hour. And that's not safe, and that's not comfortable. Or it could be, they clearly didn't think of, what it would mean to be a bicyclist on this road and how uncomfortable that would be. And that's different solutions. This is a bike that I bought in a previous place that I worked, where it mapped out and it measured how the pavement condition, how uncomfortable the ride would be. And that way we could spend money on making sure that we have, rather than this poor guy in the hoodie having to go up and down each one of these hills, it's a comfortable ride. Could be, it's just ugly. There's signage and clutter. And I probably talked about this in urban design class last week, but the other thing that this often means with this kind of suburban pattern of, gas stations and fast food restaurants is every single one of those, to be a viable business, needs to have access, right? You need to be able to get into the drive-thru to get your Chick-fil-A. And so the problem there is that you're two things. One is you're setting up all these new access points, so everybody that pulls in cuts you off, slows down traffic, you're crawling at a pace. But two, you can see this one on the left. This is all the different intersections that a person on in the road would have with another vehicle. All those different turn movements. There's a lot of opportunity for you to crash into somebody else. And especially if you're a bicyclist, you have to be watching for every single one of those access points to see, is somebody gonna pull out in front of you, is somebody gonna pull in because they're really hungry and want to get to their Whopper Junior or whatever it is. It could be this. I don't know how she got there, but basically, like, what's the parking situation like? Is parking a problem? Can I do that? And oftentimes we'll do street surveys and see what utilization is looking like. And can we build parking? Is there a way to better orient so that way we can get to the places that we want to go? It could be this. Our pavement condition is so bad that a tree's growing up in the middle of the pavement. This is actually, somebody planted that to make a point to, this was not in Utah, this was not Summit County, but they wanted to make a point that the conditions of the pavement was so bad that, vegetation was growing out of it. In fact, there's a group in Oakland, California, they're the pothole vigilantes, and at night they'll go in with their asphalt and they'll fix all the pavement for the street. And kind of a cool idea, and the city actually doesn't like it because they're not doing it up to their standards. And so they say, well, if you're not going to do it at all, we'll do it. We'll take care of it. And we'll look at pavement condition and how we can extend pavement life. And then what's the problem with this bus stop? No way to get there, right? Sure, the bus is coming, and maybe it's 10-minute frequencies. Sure, jump on it if you can only get there. But as I can tell, it's almost virtually impossible for you to get to that. And so we'll do a lot of things like, this is a map of Portland and how accessible different bus stops are. How can you get there, as well as not just can you get there, but is it safe to get there? Can you cross the street? And then, this is Japan, and can you cross the street? And, anyway, that's a density map of how many, your intersection density, usually more intersections people can get around and not as many cul-de-sacs. So, okay, any questions about that? Yeah.
I don't, it's not a question, but you're talking about widening 224, and you briefly said what else could you do but widen it, but you could, build park and ride and have nonstop buses, and that would encourage people to get out of their car.
Excellent, yes, very good, yeah. The solution isn't always widening. In fact, in congestion management principles, widening should be the last resort. And it's the most expensive, it's the most long-lasting, it's the most disruptive to the rest of the neighborhood. And so those solutions like finding parking or additional frequency for buses, those could be a lot less expensive and can often solve the problem without going through the expense of widening a highway, which makes it even harder for people to get from one side to the other. So yeah, excellent point. There's hundreds of different solutions that could be possible in the toolbox before we get to widening. And sometimes widening is important too. Do you disagree?
I don't think you should widen.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
I think you should do park and ride,
Uh-huh.
and then when you want to take the bus, there's a place to park.
And one thing that we are doing right now, we got a grant from UDOT to do a park and ride study, so we're working on that right now. There'll be some outreaches this winter, I would think, and we'll want to hear your thoughts as far as how do we systematically put together a strategy so people don't have to drive in and be on this streets, and can you provide buses or carpools or bike share, and get people to where they want to go. So yeah, I think that's, I still stand behind it, sometimes you have to widen, but it's always it should be the last resort. Yeah, other thoughts? Am I running out of time?
You're good.
Oh, okay. All right, and one way that we look at that is, we have a travel demand model. Basically, it's a tool software that we use where we look at what's the volume on the roads today, where are cars going, where are people starting, where are people going. And it's a mathematical model that looks at, where we are today as well as where we're gonna be down the road 20, 30, 40 years. And so we can anticipate this. Oftentimes, new interchange, new overpass, a new highway is decades or generations in the making. And so we have to look out several years and say, what is the future demands on the system? And we'll start with trip generation, just, like a new subdivision comes in, so there's 150 homes. We'll look at how many new trips are you generating? How many trips out of that neighborhood are you doing? Trip distribution, where are you going? Where, are you going to work? Are you going to school? Are you going to church? 7-Eleven. So it'll figure out how we distribute those trips throughout the community. Mode choice, can you walk? Can you bike? Can you take a transit, a bus? And so it'll figure that out, and then route assignment. It'll say, okay, 60% of these are gonna go down the highway, 20% are gonna go this way, 5% are gonna walk, and so forth. Yeah, question?
When you guys are thinking about, sorry.
Oh,
go ahead.
sorry. I'm throwing first.
How do you figure this out? Like, is it an assumption, like you say, okay, if there's like a housing development, like of 100 houses, then on average, there'll be this many people going to this many places? Or do you actually like have a camera that measures like where they're going, or do you like have something like, I don't know. How do you figure this out?
Great question. Yes, to most of those. So basically, there are some kind of standard, so it's a mathematical model, so it'll figure out, what is the typical thing that people will do, the logical approach that people will take. It'll, based on years and years of study, we know if you build a new apartment complex, it'll generate this many trips based on the height, the intensity, the density, the location, and then the model, because it is geographic, it will figure out, where will people typically go shopping, where will they go to schools, and it will figure that out. And then we validate or verify that information. We'll put down those like road tubes, and we'll check. The model will say 1,100 people drive down this road, and then it will, when you drive over it, it will count, and it will say, well, actually it was 1,000. And so we can reprogram our model to say, actually reduce it by X percent or something like that. Yeah, question in the back?
Yeah, this is a little random, but I was just wondering if self-driving cars start peeking into your mode choice.
Yeah, okay, and now it's my question, what's the limitations of this? Changes, yeah. This is assuming that we live the same today and 30 years from now, or that we live 30 years from now the same as we do today. Electric vehicles are gonna radically change that, self-driving autonomous vehicles are gonna radically change that. And so that's one limitation. Nobody has data on the future. We have guesses, but nobody has data on the future. Other limitations? Yeah, okay, we can go question.
In the planning process, like a new development comes up, I know that you have a big overview of the county, but when the development shows up, how, do you get involved and like put out numbers, somebody in your team puts out numbers for the planners, and then when it goes to the public, who tells the public, because the first thing everyone says is traffic, oh, it's increased traffic, oh, right?
Yep.
And you guys already thought of that, but the people, that's the biggest thing they say.
Mhm.
So where, do you step out with like body armor and say, no, we've already figured this out? Or like, or where do you stand behind a door and go, here's the paper? You know, like how do you get involved with that? Because the people, when it goes to public, a public input.
Hearing.
Yeah, hearing. You know, that they're all enraged already before they get there.
Seen that before. Yeah. And the answer is, we require most developments to have like a traffic impact study. And the engineers go out and they'll do some validation of volumes, and then they'll use their calculations to figure out how much new traffic and where that traffic will go. Depending on where it is, maybe 90% of the traffic goes down the street where there's capacity, or maybe not, and 90% goes down. I will say, and that's my next limitation of this doesn't tell us what we should do. This just tells us what would probably be the ramifications of that. So, I mean, a traffic engineer will bring in a traffic impact study and they'll say, this is where the traffic is likely to go. But what we do about that is entirely up to public hearings, and that's why we do public hearings is, maybe we're not satisfied with the level of service that is generated from this. So, from professional opinion, we give our opinions, but that's why it's a quasi-judicial system.
Well, one of the maps that you showed overpasses over the main highway that were on regular cross streets.
Yep.
That was one of your first slides. But in the state, they don't do that. They only have one every, umpteen miles. So you can't have a community that actually interacts on both sides of the highway, which is de facto segregation, so to speak.
Right. And if you look at 224, Kimball Junction, we have two sides of the highway. Right now, it's a pretty wide highway. If you want to get across it, you're gonna have to, be a little courageous. And what do we do if traffic's gonna get worse over the next 30 years? Do we just add lanes to that?
No.
Well, that makes it even more difficult to get from one side to the other. We will be having another open house. Kimball Junction, UDOT will be hosting an open house this winter to talk about what solution that they come up with is appropriate for the community. Again, the models will tell us what the numbers are, but you tell us what you value.
They don't even plow like the bike lanes in the winter. They don't plow any of that. So people who could use their electric bikes or whatever, they can't use them because they don't push the snow away.
Yeah, they do some pathways and they don't do others. I think it's a resource management where there's only enough money to go around. I know that's not a great answer, but that's the limitation.
The underpass at Kimball Junction to go onto the highway for pedestrians and bikes is flooded in the spring. It's filled with ice. for the winter, so you can't use that underpass. There's only one place for the animals to go over, which is up by Summer Park. There's nothing for the, you know, all the deer and everybody else that comes through.
Yeah. That is a perfect comment for that open house. I'm totally serious. I hope I see you there, because UDOT needs to hear that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, yeah, please come, yeah.
Yes, to follow up on her comment, I was really inspired when have you seen that Yellowstone to Yukon corridor? Where the native peoples in Canada are creating overpasses and underpasses for wildlife. I would love to see more of that, especially in Browns Canyon.
Right.
And around Rockport and several places, Echo.
Well, your wish is coming true, I hope. We worked with UDOT on a grant for Echo Canyon to put in new underpasses in that area. So it's a grant, it's a competitive grant. We don't know if we'll get it, but I think we've made a pretty strong case that would help with wildlife crossings.
Great.
Yeah, and we're always looking for other ways to improve that situation. Yeah, good. I should probably move along. I've got a few more things. I'm gonna skip over a few things too.
So you're an animal transportation plan also.
I guess I am. I didn't think about that, but yeah, yeah.
Give yourself a raise.
Okay, so solutions. I created this with street banks. If you ever want to play with this fun game, you can create little cross sections of streets. I think it's fun. I know you just looked at it and it's not very fun. It's pretty fun. And you can create cross sections of streets, and you can say, what should Kimball Junction look like? What should SR 224 look like? Or what should Highway 32 look like? And you can play around with it. It's fun. Okay, but my question for you is, in this particular cross section, who's being served and who isn't? Cars are being served? Yeah, okay. There's quite a few travel lanes, right? We got a parking lane, we got a travel lane, turn lane, drive lane, bus lane. Who's not being served? Yeah, that's a pretty good cross to make it across. I think it's 70 feet that they would have to cross there. Each of these are 80-foot right of ways. So yeah, good. Anything else?
No bike lanes?
No bike lanes, yeah. Good luck biking down that one, right? Unless you want to bike on the sidewalk, which the pedestrians hate, or bike in a travel lane, which only, they've done research, only 2% of people really want to.
But in Summit County, that's called a trail, it's not a sidewalk. It's a trail.
Okay, well, let me give you another option for this 80-foot right of way. How's this one? Better, worse, indifferent? Who does this one serve? Better? Who does it serve?
It serves the, food truck. Is that a food truck?
It is a food truck, yeah. Who does it not serve?
The normal people who walk down the street.
Okay. Yeah, if it's being blocked by a food truck, right? Yeah. So this you might see this more in an urban setting where you're wanting that community walking around, so forth. What's the one person it definitely doesn't serve? Who? A pedestrian?
Yeah.
Pedestrian crosses that.
But it's a pretty good crossing, but less far than the previous one. Okay, I screwed up. I put her on the drive side of this food truck. She's not waiting on the sidewalk, she's waiting in the travel lane. I screwed up, yeah. She's definitely not being served there. Okay, and then this is another option. What does everybody think of this? A 10-foot food truck, a 4-foot kiosk, a 59-foot bike lane, and a 7-foot sidewalk? No,
It's not
or less than
very
that?
Ideal.
It's a biker's dream.
Any bikers dreaming that? Any bikers in here like that one best? Okay, yeah.
All these mothers with strollers would be six cars. They will fill any bike.
That's right. That won't
Like
last.
that.
Okay. Okay, and then just a couple more things for you to know if you go to a public hearing and you want to talk and you want to sound like you know what you're doing. Oftentimes we'll relate to people.
Could you just go back one slide? I just didn't want anyone to miss over, the one that said the phase, that the,
Forward.
yeah, keep going forward. There you go, stop.
Oh.
What, you mentioned the 3 phases previously as being context, problem, solution, but then this 4th phase is really important, so I didn't want anybody to miss this title slide. of monitoring what's happening and then going back and making corrections as needed.
Yes, thank you, good point. Yeah, because, I mean, things change, we wanna make sure that we're making improvements. You really don't know unless you're benchmarking where you're at and what you're trying to do. So one way that we measure that, is traditionally we've done level of service, LOS, level of service. And basically, a level of service A means cars can go when they want, where they want, nobody's getting in their way, all the way down to level of service F, which means that there's a breakdown in flow, and there's what you would consider rush hour or your traffic jam, and that there's a lot, more vehicles than capacity. There's not enough space for it all. This is traditionally how we've measured this. Good, yeah, question?
I think, well, this seems obvious, obviously. It should be over time of day, because I drove in Kansas City trying to get my daughter to school, and then I always got halfway, but then when I go out, it's the direction, opposite direction, that's the way opposite direction. So it's really fast for it to get out. So then, what would you do about that? Sometimes it's not traffic, but.
Yeah, Amy, and you answered the first question I was gonna ask, which is what's the problem with this? Which is, it maybe A in one direction and F in the other direction. Well, what does that mean? Should we always build it to the very most? So typically when they do these traffic impact studies, they'll take like the 85th percentile, so 85th, out of 100 days, the 85th worst day, and they'll build it to that capacity. Well, what's the problem with that? 84 of those days, you don't really need that much capacity, and like your point, you don't need that lane after all. You built it for the worst day, or one of the worst days of the year, and you really don't need it those other days of the year.
They used to have it where, certain alternative roads would be one way, into town for rush hour, out of town for rush hour, and for some reason, they just don't do that anymore. I don't know if it's an accident or whatever. But the simple fact of the matter is the ability to change the lanes, like on a bridge, where you have the lights and the middle lane, there's like a barrier that comes up and down. They do that for traffic, but I don't know if that would work.
Yeah.
When at the end of the road, there's still only one lane going to I-80. So unless you redo that where you're bypassing Kimball Junction, or you close the entrance to the shopping on both sides and make it through another venue, then that would be the only way your 224 would then directly go into Salt Lake or to Colville or whatever, but you also don't have any really good bus service that's nonstop up and down.
That was a great summary. It's a great in concept, and if you can make it work, where I grew up in the California Bay Area, you get from the East Bay to San Francisco, you went through the tunnel, and there was always 3 tunnels, and 2 of them were open the route of the most traffic.
Right.
Yeah, and so you got twice, not quite twice, but almost twice the capacity that you would if you were just to have 2 tunnels. It can be tricky, it can be difficult, because ultimately you do have to get it to a certain amount of lanes. Probably should think out more outside the box with these kind of things, but you're right, it can be an option that works. Any other problems with level of service? Yeah.
Maybe do a seasonality also, because I know
Yes.
that's gonna get traffic to the.
Yeah. Yeah, so do we build it for the very worst situation, and then it's far too wide and people don't use it in the summer, spring, and the shoulder season, and people can't cross it, or do we build it for, you know, the best time of year? Yeah, it's a tricky question. Yeah. Another one, yeah, Maddie.
Well, I was just thinking that oftentimes these traffic studies are done to get to a level of service that we might not expect. Like oftentimes we're shooting for a level of service C or D, where in our sort of American goal-driven minds were like, it must be an A or it's terrible.
Yeah.
And to shoot for an A would be really difficult, if not impossible in most cases. And so I think that the labeling system is also perhaps one of the downfalls.
I love that answer, because yeah, we think, well, we gotta get an A. Well, not really. If you think about which of these, from a traffic standpoint, level of service A is probably most free flow, and from, when you're driving your vehicle, that's probably what you want. What about from an economic development standpoint? If you own a shop, you don't want people flying past your business at 60 miles an hour. You want people to be able to slow down and turn into your business there. So it kind of depends. A is not always the best, which is difficult for us to think.
I was just gonna mention that's information or education to the public, because the public, you're right, says we want, we don't want too many cars, going back to the planning, to the public outcry. But, like, I can think of one developments and traffic, but really, cars fly on that road right now, and they have driveways, I mean, they're not for streetlights, right? So it's interesting because I always thought, I didn't even think of it, I think we heard it in a different class.
What?
How when you have more cars, they go slower. If you have less cars, they step on it, right?
Yeah.
And so nobody thinks about that, like in a public hearing for a development. You just say, oh, more traffic, but honestly, is it better to have less traffic, or is it better?
Yeah, which one from a safety standpoint, which road would you want to be on? If these guys are going 55, 60, these guys are going 0. You're probably more comfortable in this range, right? So, yeah, sometimes you solve one problem, not the other one.
They did that on Kirby Road. It used to be straight and everybody would zoom down the street as fast as they could. So then they put in all of these little turns. They're just a pain in the butt. And it's absolutely worse to try and cross.
Because now you're going fast and you have to.
And you have to swerve.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you're not crossing there. You're crossing another freeway.
Well, if you're going this way and you want to turn, make a left-hand turn.
What about a new way of looking at traffic, level of traffic stress, rather than just service? How efficient is it? How stressed are you? If you're walking down a number, 5-lane highway and everybody going 55 miles an hour, you're at a very poor level of stress, even if you're at a good level of service. So, you think about what are we trying to measure? What gets measured gets improved. So, we got to think about how we're measuring these things, and that's a key critical step, and it kind of feedbacks into the feedback loop of visioning again. You have some information, and are we making progress or not? Okay. And then some other ways to evaluate performance. Are we looking at opportunity, access? Can you get, a lot of times we look at level of service, but maybe we should be looking at just, how long does it take for you to get there? And that's a land use and transportation component. You could either move your work or job or house closer, or you could, build the infrastructure. So maybe we should be looking at measuring things not just in vehicles per lane, but how long does it take you to get there? And when Atlanta changed that, they changed their whole perspective of how they did land use and transportation planning by trying to bring development closer to where the jobs were. This is another accessibility one, and you can see with the cul-de-sacs, you can't get from this street to that street. You have your kid has a friend over here, he has to go all the way down to this major highway, come around without that connectivity. And there's some fairly easy solutions to that. But we'll never know, because I'm running out of time, and I want to quiz you one more time. Is everybody ready? See if you learned anything. All right, I'm going to give you a road, a sketch, just really. And I need you guys to tell me what you would do to fix the road. No wrong answers.
What's the problem?
Okay, I'm going to show you the picture.
Okay.
Ready? I'll give you 30 seconds to think about it. Think deep. About urban design. About employee growth. And what did you talk about last month? None of that. All right. Anybody want to raise their hand and give me what you would do? Money's no limit. What would you do if this is right?
I couldn't hear you.
So So left-hand turn lane, so that way people don't have to stop when this person blocks all the traffic. Very good, yeah.
I like the model run one-way roads that is done like chevron style in the middle lane, rather than having to stop every time someone's parallel parking.
Okay, yeah, parking, yeah, that's, can be pretty annoying.
If
Some
it's
people
busy
can't
and there's a
park.
lot of people trying to parallel park, it holds everyone else up, whereas they can just pull into a chevron space and then pull straight out.
Very good, yeah, good, excellent, yeah.
I think in DC, they have particular streets that have, bike lanes that take that parking lane out,
Mm-hmm.
so you won't get hit. You won't get hit, so you're not worried about what speed you are on your bike.
So you're not fighting with traffic on this road, you have your own designated space,
Yeah,
very
and I
good.
think it's two-way, I think it's a
Okay.
two-way bike, but it takes a lane of traffic, that's probably.
Yeah, it's about the same width, yeah.
I would say the opposite, I would say that you take the bike lane, you put the separation in between on one side for parking, that becomes your bike lane, but your bike lane is only going one way, just as the street is going one way.
Okay, would you do it on both sides?
No.
Just one way? Oh, this is, because this is one way, isn't it?
That's one
Yeah,
way.
okay.
Yeah, so it has to be one way, so the only problem is at the corner, if the biker is coming down and the car in the second lane wants to make a left-hand turn, you wanna make sure he doesn't kill the biker.
I like that, yeah, don't want
Don't wanna
anybody
kill
dead.
bikers.
And I think both of those options can work depending on the context of the street, right? If you don't have another safe access, the contra-directional, maybe you do need that second, bicycle lane, so you can go in both directions. If maybe a block over, you have that.
Well, if everything's one way, it's same way, one way. Problem is that most bikers wanna race through the street, they don't wanna slow down when they get to the corner, though the car has to stop or slow down or whatever. I
And
mean,
should
there has to
they?
be,
And
there just
should
has to
they?
be, some type of,
Yeah, and should they get priority treatment? I don't know, maybe yes, maybe
the
no. Depends on
biker or the
situation.
car.
Well, either one. That's a good question. And that kind of goes back to that visioning. You know, what are we trying to do here? Are we trying to make things safe for bicyclists? Are we trying to move traffic real quickly? When you answer that first question, it makes the answer to that pretty obvious, right? Yeah, okay. Well, let's see. This is the National Association of City Transportation Officials. Should we see what they did? Okay, so they did some bulb out, so it wasn't so hard to cross the street. Some landscaping median. They did the one-way bicycle lane. They added a bus only or bus rapid transit lane, and trees. Anything else? Benches, yeah, very good. So you don't have to. Yeah. Okay. Ready for the next one? Oh, that's the comparison if you want to look.
Okay.
Anybody like one better? Anybody like two? Yeah. Just adding trees makes all of them better, just so you know. Okay, what about this one? Anybody want to, we'll give you a few seconds. Should I be wrapping this up?
You're okay, take.
Okay. All right, I'll take somebody brave in the back. What would you do? One of the back tables.
Some landscaping.
Landscaping, always. That's an architect for you, right? Put in some landscaping, I like it. That would improve it 40% right there. Okay, what else?
That's a loading truck?
Uh,
No parking for the truck.
oh, that doesn't work on this.
Yeah.
This loading truck?
Is that, that's what I'm trying to ask.
I believe it is.
Well, she should be next to the curb.
Okay. So you would fix the parking? Is that what I'm getting? I think this looks pretty good for New York City, right? All those loading
No,
trucks just
New
pull
York
up next
City
to
couldn't do
somebody
that.
and
You couldn't do
camp
that.
out for a few hours?
No.
Double park, yeah.
Your car would be towed in no time.
Okay. What's something somebody would do to fix this one? Yeah.
And median would make it easier to cross halfway and wait if necessary.
Yeah, that's 4 lanes plus 2 lanes of parking. That's a
Three
pretty
lanes.
long ways to walk. Especially for maybe somebody that's not as able, right? That's a good distance. Anything else?
Well, it depends on what the goal is, like if this is
True.
downtown and there's restaurants out there, you know, maybe you extend sidewalks.
Uh-huh. liked your point at the beginning too, it depends on what you're trying to do. If you're trying to move people through this, it's pretty ugly, but it would get the job done. If you're trying to get people to have an experience here, it's not gonna do that. All right, should we see what DACO did? So they did, landscaping, yeah. They did some bulb outs for so you're not crossing so many lanes. They did the outdoor dining, on that side and that side. And they put in bicycle lanes, buffered from the vehicle lane. So not only are you have your own designated space, you have a little bit of space. Is that the best you could do? Probably not. You probably put in some real barriers so people want to
Also,
cross them.
cars aren't going so close to people trying to go to their parked car.
Mhm.
Pushing their door into the city.
You mean in Utah or?
Yes.
Whoa.
That's your homework. No, Peter knows.
Snow plow, and an obsession with parking spaces. Once we put parking spaces to the corner, people refuse to take them away because they're thinking in terms of cars and not pedestrians. If you're actually thinking in terms of elderly, disabled, or children, or that blind guy who I noticed was only 2/3 of the way across between the first two slides, it's taking him ages to get across. If each one of those corners was pinched, there'd be so much safer for pedestrians, but if you're a snowplow driver, you go, hey, you know, every curve is in my way. And if you tell shall we say, the commercial businesses on Main Street, Colville, that you're gonna take 2 of the parking spaces away, they'll react negatively, whereas if you actually can explain that a car parked in front of your shop window is doing nothing for your shop window display, and if you could actually encourage people to walk across the road, maybe you'd actually get more customers, not less. But it's a challenge to overcome what we're used to.
What's that bike lane that comes out in the middle there? Or is that bike lane? Yeah.
Oh, this bike box?
Yeah.
Yeah. So we were talking about who do you prioritize on this road. You put a bike box here, and you can bike all the way up to the front of the line. And then you get the first, green, you get to go first. So it obviously prioritizes bicyclists, to the motorists, they get the negative, because they have to wait.
Yeah.
But depending on your vision and the context of the area, it could be a good thing. Yeah.
I'm a very competent driver, I'm not a nervous driver, but I will say that sometimes just looking at that is like a little bit of like, there's just too much going on. When you're driving in a place, especially if it's, a new city that you're visiting or whatever, and you turn onto a street and there's like a bike lane and a bus lane and a tram and you don't know where to turn off. I understand.
It's too much.
It can be a lot.
Is there any advantage to that, being too much?
Slow down.
You have to slow down, yeah, depending on where you're at, what you're trying to do, maybe we want to slow down. Narrow a lane by a foot, people go 5 to 10 miles slower. I agree, I hate being in an important city, you're driving and there's all these signs and all these things, and then a bicycle comes right up in front of you and you're like,
I mean, they do
But-
have the unidirectional or the changing lanes out at ones at West Valley or whatever, but it's like you're trying to, which lane am I in? Is it the arrow or the X or?
Yeah,
it's-
yes, yep,
So I have a question. So you talked about money is an issue and in this little exercise that we
Okay.
have. In real life, it is an issue.
Yeah.
And you talked about applying for grants and you hope you get this for the various studies or various things. So could you explain briefly how funding works and how it's prioritized and how things are allocated? Is it like, I'm gonna take you out to dinner in a strip club, so you're gonna get, you're gonna get your funding, or like, how does it work,
Can I explain briefly how it works?
Yeah.
If Maddie wants to have me back for another night, I would be happy to go through how funding works. It is very complicated. All those partners that I showed you at the beginning, multiply that by 20. And there's a lot of color of money kind of issues where MPOs, metropolitan planning organizations, get access to certain money where they don't have others. Rural areas like ours have access to some that the urban areas don't. there's grants, there's by right monies.
Is this federal or state?
All of it.
All of it.
Yeah, I mean, there's just, it's just a hot mess.
And didn't, wasn't
So,
there?
yeah, I mean.
Okay, well,
it's
and I thought there was
important.
some issues with like the UDOT guy, like a little while back, you know, there
I
was.
have issues with the UDOT guy.
Yeah, well, I think we all do, yeah.
That's how we got the Olympics.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, okay. So.
Sorry, I don't know which UDOT guy.
I thought there was some sort of like, they were like basically handing out favors to, like family members and everything. Yeah, so anyways, I guess I'm just curious how it all works and on the federal level, the state level. local,
Yeah,
all that.
so, okay, my best chance at a high level is we'll develop a long-range plan, our vision, and our capital improvement plan for what projects we see as needing, kind of based on that model, as well as public outreach. We'll put together a plan, a project list, and then we'll have to prioritize that. The state will do the same thing. It's called the State Transportation Improvement Program, with the STIP. It's basically a capital improvement plan, where they have to identify how much money they will be receiving in revenue, and then compare that to how much needs they will have, and then they kind of block those into like 5-year increments. We'll do these projects, this is 5 years, the next 5 years these, and then that gets done usually through a technical process, and then we get to do the political process, where the mayors, you know, sit together in UDOT and they do discussion about, you know, is this list accurate? Do we want to move things around? And not always bad. I mean, if we get the Olympics here, we're going to move up a lot of projects on that list that probably wouldn't be until 2040, 2050. We'll need them in the next 10 years. So, I mean, changing growth, changing politics, changing funding sources, all those things can change it. So usually that's why we will update our plan every 4 years, so that way we're staying current and we get the projects that we really need on that list, and that those are typically eligible for funding.
Yeah.
That was a very bad explanation.
No, I thought you answered my question, and I think one of the things that it stemmed from was I was looking at this, where it's the Utah's Unified Transportation Plan 23 to 2050. It says fiscally constrained phase 1, assumed funding, phase needed 1. So I just kind of,
That's exactly what I'm
I
saying.
didn't know what that meant.
They're looking
so.
at how much revenue they think they'll have, and then they say, okay, how many projects can we do? And they'll do the first 15 or 17 or whatever.
Okay.
And then whatever can be done gets dropped into the next bucket. But those change annually, usually more than annually, those can change. Somebody can say, oh, we're getting a new baseball stadium, we need this highway built, and so that can get moved up on the list.
Cool.
Sometimes it's done because of, well, I'll just say it can change.
This might be weird, but, does the project ever get moved higher on the list if people are in that area?
Yes, yes. In fact, one of the things we're doing right now is we've got a grant for an active, for a Safe Streets for All plan, and there's an outreach. You guys are gonna be busy this winter. We have a public outreach, and we'll be asking for your thoughts. We'll do kind of a technical analysis first to say, like, where are the crash hotspots and where are they occurring? But there's also where crashes haven't occurred, but they're probably going to, you know, over by the rail trail and then exit by Fulville. It's a dangerous location, and we would love to get that on the project list so we can get funding for that. So Safe Streets for All grant, we're working with MAG, our partner, on that right now, and so we'll be looking at, you know, where our crashes occurring, but also, like, you know, your neighborhood, where is there a crash that's gonna occur because it's just dangerous when it's not. What was the question? Yeah, so things will get moved up, and there's actually $1 billion just for that grant, nationwide, it's $1 billion. Peter?
Carl, I mean, this gets us to the integration of land use and transportation. But as part of the grant exercise, are there grants available, for example, look upon changes to the street as an economic investment? I'm not moving the traffic any faster, it's not going to a level of service A. So UDOT's primary focus is no longer applicable. But if I actually increase the tax increment from increased sales tax or increased property taxes from people who now want to live in this area and are more active in this area? Is there a way of balancing out future return on taxes against the cost of improving this infrastructure?
Yeah, great question. So basically, can we redesign a street even if it doesn't add throughput to it? Are there other factors involved? And that's really what we get to in this section, or the previous section of performance monitoring and performance-based planning, is looking at the total societal benefit cost analysis. In previous work, that's a lot what I did, is trying to evaluate projects, but not just, traditionally we would just say, Project A moves 30,000 vehicles, so it's better than Project B, which only moves 15,000 vehicles. Well, there's obviously so many more ramifications to that. There's safety, there's farmland preservation. If you build a new highway in farmland area, well, guess what? That's where growth is going to occur. There's, infrastructure, there's health. If again, we build a new highway, sure, blue cars will move faster, but what does that do to our point pollutants, our mobile source emissions that we have? So looking at a comprehensive performance-based planning approach is difficult, but it gets us to a better quality of life than just, hey, did I move more vehicles with this project than the other project? And I think that's really what a lot of people are wanting, is not just, transportation, roads, and land use are linked. These two things need to work together. Okay, well, that's probably enough of that game. Did everybody have fun? Good. Okay, then we will skip over that. So what do you do? Hopefully you did your homework assignments. I just pulled out 4 from that assignment that was called how can I participate? Something like that. Define the problem. Again, please don't tell me I don't like my roads. Please tell me why you don't like your roads. It's unsafe, it's too much traffic, it's too much visual clutter, it's the wrong context. I think last time you talked to urban-rural transit, it's the wrong road for this particular land use, right? Rally the community. No offense, but if it's you, if it's just one person, I care deeply, I empathize, but there's probably not a lot we're gonna do. If there's 43,000 people in the county that all want something, it's probably gonna get done. Do your homework. You're here, you did your homework, good job. Timing is everything. We talked a little bit about how land use plan or transportation plans are done. Honestly, if you interject a really good idea at the end or after the plan has been built, thank you. We'll probably have to hold it for the next plan. There's certain things that we can do and there's certain things that we can't. So, participate in the process. I think I've given you 3 opportunities to participate this winter in outreaches and open houses. Please come to that. That's when we're asking for you to participate, and we can do something about it. There's a project in place. We're doing something. We have funding. If you interject yourself in the process at a different place, great. We'll work on it, but we often don't have the same ability to solve that problem as we would if you are in the. Bridget will tell you all about them when they're scheduled. So when we have these open houses, these outreaches, please be on our website, social media. We will post them, and none of these have been scheduled with a date certain yet. So that's why I'm not telling you. But our community engagement page will have all the details. Usually there's cookies.
Yeah, it's always refreshing. I can also show you guys eventually, maybe one class, just like all the places that we are posting information.
That would be great.
Yep.
And how to sign up.
And how to sign up. We have,
Yeah.
our website has a really great text and email option where you can sign up for a whole range of different things to get alerted about, and you can customize it to what you're interested in. So yeah, we can go over that one day.
That's all I have. Thank you. You guys are great. Thank you. Do you have a question about school ground?
Well, in addition to giving lots of information, Carl also provided some good final project ideas for those of you who are still looking. I was thinking that doing a redesign of a street on Street Mix, that would be a really good project for someone. And would be probably less time consuming because it does the graphics for you. that printed out. This is why my street is better. So if someone is thinking about a particular street in your community that could be improved, that would be a good project. Before we get further into final projects, let's go ahead and take a break. We will come back at 7:45, so just under 10 minutes, and then we'll talk about those final projects. You wanna grab Carl while he's still here, he's in the back. Right, thanks everybody.
Oh, thank you. Appreciate it. Thanks for stopping me. No, it's a great question. It's just, yeah, it's just a lot.
And every time what do? Oh, I do real estate.
Yeah, I know, but you told me that before, but I meant there one capacity that you were asking about that.
Oh, I'm curious about.
You're just working with somebody.
A little over a year.
Oh, yeah, you were here.
Amazing.
There was a gal that.
I'm working
Yeah.
To do sidewalks, you were.
No, that was like 3 days.
More, the ones that I'm working with.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Mostly focused on.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. Was it Caroline?
No,
okay.
Jennifer Terry.
Uh-huh.
Long, right?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, so.
Yeah, I don't know the history as well as I should. And I find that those are pretty controversial. Talk about the roundabouts.
She was more about the roundabout so much, she cared about.
Oh, yeah.
Well, there, see, you don't know what you did.
Oh,
They
no,
did that. No overpass, see, that's what Dave said.
well, down a little bit.
So like it goes, so by Jeremy Ranch,
Yeah.
it's country, and you go under the bridge,
Okay.
and then it goes, and then it does this thing, where it comes around and goes under it again.
Yes, okay. I know what you're talking
Yeah.
about. Yeah.
There's a lot of unders, which do get flooded.
Sorry, I was thinking a little bit further west. There is a pedestrian overpass.
Oh, you mean over the freeway?
Yeah, yes.
Yeah, like that.
But you're not talking about that one?
No,
Okay.
that one's been there, that one's there before.
Yeah.
No, the Pine Brook, Jeremy Ranch, make sure you call somebody that's.
Oh, yes, and the trail that, yeah. Yeah. Yes, you gotta go off and do that thing, yeah.
Yeah, just California. So you have to put it in about community.
Yeah, no, it's probably in an area where they didn't think too much about it. So that's always a lot
Well,
of.
yeah, well, in the beginning,
I really like
that was probably nothing.
because I've done it back to back.
Uh-huh, yeah.
My left hand turning, it got to a point where it was across the freeway from Salt Lake and the left.
And that's a,
Before they put the.
Yeah, so that like scoliosis and then that, two is my left.
Yeah, but I just, I guess it was hard because my daughter lives off of the Curtis. She had, her first condo was at that ranch place.
My final project
Okay.
is in.
Yeah, because they got some extra money for that.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then she was at.
Yeah, well, you know, I guess there's some
Bought a
real
house
things, whatever.
in Summit, but she uses that as a.
I read through most of the comments, like, you know, the letters.
I don't remember, I
There's
don't
a
remember.
PDF file, I don't know if that.
Well, they didn't have
And
that whole
I think the number
development
one
there
thing was kind
either.
of.
Next time
You know,
So-
yeah, on the right hand
So
side.
that's kind of, and, you know, the purpose of this line
I'm
was,
just trying to think how hard it was.
later,
You know,
the
I
density is
don't
here.
remember.
And, you know, that seems like that was the general
Yeah.
idea, whereas the community's like, no, it's already bad, why would you contribute to making it worse, and then fix it? So I'm curious how that, like, what the dynamic is there between UDOT and between Dakota Pacific. And, you know, and the local, you know, entities that should be responsible for
public traffic.
And do you know that dynamic? Well, I always say that, it's not their problem, but that could be one of the things, I'm asking him, because he has a perspective. So, I guess that's kind of what I'm curious.
And usually UDOT will only, speak on their roads and then so, I mean, there's two aspects to it. One is, what are you doing to 224 UDOT's road? And then one is, what are you doing to the local road? That's why they did the traffic impact study, and the study showed that you wouldn't reduce the level of service as long as you did X, Y, and Z, and they were willing to do X and Y. And so it never got there, but UDOT, it'd be interesting to see if UDOT would relent it, or if they would have still stood their ground and said, no, you have to do all of the following things, because our standards are, you're gonna have level of service D on a highway in Summit County.
So the level of service, for what they basically had planned was D.
Unless they did the following mitigation
All three
strategy.
of them.
Yeah, I remember how many were, but they had to do all of them to maintain the same level of service.
But then, when the Alliance doing most of work in that area, yeah, because I was in Creek, so, the deal was that UDOT, they had no intention of doing anything with the I-80 entrance or anything in that area.
Yeah, it's the craziest thing. Everybody I talk to, you know, it's always been, right? Oh, it's not our problem yet. We've got other priorities.
You wanna widen, then you wanna widen a road, and then you wanna narrow it. So having it widen and not create the same freaking problem when you narrow it, you know, it's one thing they wanted to cut across, I guess, the bottom part of run amok, that throw a lane, but unless it's a high pass, you got one more light, one more left.
So is there interplay between UDOT and, I guess, Summit? Is that where the other aspect would be?
Yeah, and then to throw one more layer into it, we're going through the Kimball Junction environmental impact study right now to determine which design. It is good, but it's also sad because there's no funding for it. So we could do the design and not have a lot of
And so that's the hard part, right? That's basically what I'm asking. You would think with the Olympics, but I don't really know what I am, you would think with the Olympics, how we get prioritized.
You would think, yeah.
So,
And then I sent it to my.
how do you lobby for that fund?
So then, I bus service, which have less than 100 spots. But between the transportation center and the information center, you can build another highway so that you can put in and then
So that's what you're talking about at the open house, is like any idea, you know.
So they have redesigned, okay,
Oh,
you'll see them soon. You live out there?
Yeah.
Okay, we definitely want you involved. Well, we want everybody, but I mean, especially it's your.
well, it's like the, you know, the tunnel that goes from Highland Avenue to Bedford. So it has 2 lanes, it has like a rough, so it's supposed to be that you can walk and bike, but I swear, it's so dangerous because the tunnel is like this, and I go to walk there with my dog, if particularly, the underpass is full of ice, but you know, unless it's the end of the summer, right now, you probably, yeah, I don't bother, I just go into the tunnels and come back. None of these walking roads are shovels in the winter. You realize that?
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
it's, to be fair, it's pretty tough. That's not my department, it's public
Right,
works,
I know,
but it
but I
is
mean-
really difficult.
So you're saying there are 3 plans, and there are 3 plans right now, and you're soliciting input on which plan?
Yeah, we will be shortly asking for public input on these 3 designs. Design 3 ways that they think that they could solve the problem with Kimball Junction. Each one is very different, each one does things well and does things poorly. And we're looking for the public's comment on Do they like
Well,
this?
like I said, if you had a bridge driving out.
Greg, do you think someone?
Yeah.
So if you had a bridge, when you get off at, the tandem for Park City for Kimball Junction, it's only a one exit lane. Okay, it should have.
It's gonna be on fashion.
Yeah.
The outlet and where they have
Follow it.
bridges. Where they could
That's basically.
Probably got the template.
Bring them off the stage.
All right, everybody, you can take your seat.
So if you like that idea, say you like that.
You know, Philadelphia was a planned city.
Okay, we're gonna spend some time talking about our final projects, and you'll have time to work on them again this evening if you'd like to spend some time on that. As a reminder, the vision for the final projects is sort of science fair style. So you'll have a section of a table where you can put up, if you have a visual display, I will provide everyone who wants one with a poster board. So if you'd like to make a poster board like the previous class, you can do that. If you want to have your laptop in front of you and have a short presentation, you could do that. So there are a couple of options for how you want to make that look. But in general, as a reminder, the intention behind this project is so that you can more fully explore some of these topics related to planning that you are interested in.
Yeah.
And then additionally, you could be able to get feedback or input from the public to hopefully be able to affect change. So at this meeting, it's going to be open to members of the public. You can feel free to invite anyone you'd like to. There'll be members of the planning staff, both planning commissions, the county council. So it's a good opportunity for you to sort of start building that network of this planning cohort, we'll call it. So when we're thinking about the final project, that's sort of my purpose for why I would want everybody to do a project, so you can learn more, so you can expand your network. Is there any other reason that you can think of that would be the purpose for doing a final project?
Well, I think we could actually make this a reality, like it could benefit the department.
Yeah, I would love that. Any other reasons?
Well, it incorporates change, and it's not the same things being recycled, you know, because as this group changes, the input comes in. I mean, I was surprised when I first came here, how many people have moved in the last 20 years.
It's a long time ago.
So, yeah, well, now in my age.
So when you start just finding that things are deeper than you think, you've got, this is a solution, but then if you start looking at considering others, it's a lot deeper, it's hard to get an answer.
Yeah. And last class, we were in sort of smaller groups based on areas of interest, but I guarantee you, if you joined any of those groups, you'd be able to find interconnection. All of these ideas and topics have a lot of connectivity to each other, and it spreads much further than the information we'll be able to cover over the course of 10 weeks. So this is just an introduction, a primer to that, and so I hope that you are encouraged to go out and learn more as well.
Is this the second time you've done this class?
Mm-hmm.
And what did the first class we saw in the affordable housing, those big posters that you showed? But you, have you felt that any of those things have been implemented or are coming forward as a group?
Yeah, so the Regional Housing Authority came from a project in the class, was really spearheaded by that group. There's been some push for something we're calling a stretch code for the sustainability department, which you'll learn a little bit more about next week from Emily. from a presentation that was done by somebody in the planning lab. So yeah, some of these ideas really do have, they have legs.
They're getting legs,
Yeah.
that's exciting.
So I just wanted to present, for those of you who have an idea, have started thinking about what their final project could look like, could sound like, here is an option for an example presentation outline. You don't have to do exactly this, but for those of you who are looking for a way to get started on this process, here's an example of what your final project might look like and sound like.